All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are now going to get into talking about the Steelers' 13-6 victory over the Denver Broncos. And it looks like Justin Fields is once again going to be the starter. So let's get into the game summary for that game. I mean, wasn't a lot of scoring, 13-6. Broncos had nope, that's the next segment. Spoiled you guys there. Well, I mean, you knew that was what the next segment was going to be, but that's, going to be one of the graphics that I use. But 13-6, not a lot of scoring. Broncos had an opportunity to score. They hit on a nice pass play by Bo Nix. They were set up. They were going to score a touchdown, or they were looking to score a touchdown, and then Bo Nix threw a red zone interception. So let's kind of go through it. So both teams exchanged punts to start off the game. The Steelers' second possession of the game, they went 12 plays, 78 yards, 7.5 minutes of time of possession down the field. Justin Fields connected with Darnell Washington, the number 2 tight end, and the Steelers went up 7-0, and that was the Steelers' first touchdown of the season because if you remember last week, Chris Boswell kicked 6 field goals. Now, in the next segment, we will talk about a team that kicked 7 field goals and won. So, yeah, they went up 7-0. The Broncos punted again. Steelers punted in the second quarter. The Broncos turned it over on downs. They went for it on 4th and 7 from the Steelers' 39-yard line. And then the Steelers cashed in right before the half, and Chris Boswell kicked a 22-yard field goal to make it 10-0 Steelers. Then both teams exchanged punts in the third quarter, and this is what I was talking about. Actually, no. This was a direct snap to... never mind. It was a direct snap to Javonte Williams. Then it was kind of a trick play. Tossed it back to Bo Nix, and he tossed it downfield for 49 yards to Josh Reynolds. And that set them up in good field position to cash in, score a touchdown. Bo Nix tried to hit Courtland Sutton, but he was intercepted. And the Broncos continued to be shut out in this game. Then the Steelers... They kicked a field goal on their drive after the interception. A 53-yard field goal by Chris Boswell. He has been off to a great start for the Steelers. Both teams exchanged punts once again. Broncos then put together a drive that led to a field goal. And this was a 35-yard field goal by Will Lutz that made it 13-3. Again, more punting in the game. A lot of punts in the game. And then the Broncos went 9 plays, 69 yards. Almost 3 minutes of time of possession down the field. Will Lutz kicked a 29-yard field goal to make it 13-6. And then Bo Nix threw another pick. It was a Hail Mary intercepted by KZ. And that was the end of the game. Steelers win 13-6. Justin Fields went 13 of 20 for 117 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, was sacked a couple times. The Steelers ran the ball for 141 yards in total. Najee Harris had 69 yards on the ground. Jaylen Warren had 42. Fields had 27. Pat Freiermuth was the leading receiver, 39 yards receiving. George Pickens had 29 yards receiving. Warren had 19. Van Jefferson, 14. Fields did fumble in this game, but he was able to recover it. And the Steelers only had 2 sacks in this game. 1 sack for T.J.Watt, and the other was Alex Highsmith. And then as for the Broncos... Bo Nix went 20 of 35 for 46 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. They didn't run the ball that well. 64 yards on the ground. Josh Reynolds was their leading receiver. He had 93 yards receiving. And then as for the Broncos defense, a couple of sacks in the game. One by Zach Allen, and the other one was by Jonah Ellis. Ellis. Yeah, Jordan Ellis. So, yeah, I mean, very low-scoring game. Or Jonah Ellis. I said Jordan Ellis. Jonah Ellis. But, yeah, very low-scoring game. And the Steelers, they are number 1 in the AFC North. 2-0. And we'll talk about them a little bit later. But you got the Browns who are 1-1, and you got the Ravens and the Bengals who are 0-2. And you didn't know what to expect so far. I mean, the Steelers, Russell Wilson was going to be the starter, and he hasn't played. And listen, if the Steelers win their home opener and you're 3-0, you're not going to pull the plug on this. But I think at least I'm getting the sense that it's kind of going to be a week-to-week thing. Like, as long as they're winning games, they're not going to make a change. But, if there's a game where Justin Fields is turning the ball over constantly and, things are not going well on offense, then they're going to make the switch to Russell Wilson, which originally was going to be the plan when Russell Wilson was the starter. If Russell Wilson wasn't playing well, they were going to go to Justin Fields. But Fields has done what he's supposed to do, hasn't put up great stats. He did hit one pass, which was really impressive. He rolled out and he threw it down the sideline to George Pickens, and it was a great play. Pickens caught it, and I was like, wow, that was a great play by Fields. But, of course, it gets called back because there was a penalty. I forget what the penalty was, but that was a great play by Fields, and that ended up getting called back. So his stats would have looked a little bit better. Maybe the Steelers would have scored more points on that drive, but because they were, in field goal range, and then they ended up not doing anything on that drive. But Fields has made some good plays. I mean, I'd like to see him, at times, I want to see the rushing stats up too for him, because that's what makes him so dangerous. I don't think he's been bad throwing the football. Can he be better? Absolutely. But, right now, the Steelers are winning these low-scoring games. They're trying to, limit the mistakes. And, the Broncos had some opportunities that they missed on. I mean, they, had a great opportunity to score a touchdown, but Bo Nix ended up throwing an interception. So far, I think he has 4 interceptions so far this year. So he hasn't been great. But the Broncos also don't have a lot of talent around him. And, you figure once you maybe surround him with more talent that he'll be better. But it's too soon to tell. This is just his second NFL game. But look, what did I say before the season started? The Steelers are really going to have to stack up wins early on in the season because towards the second half of the year, that schedule is brutal. And how the season has gone so far, it might not be as brutal as we first looked at it because they do play the Eagles late in the year, and the way the Eagles have looked so far, these first couple games, I'm not really that impressed. They got the Chiefs, but they got them at home. The Ravens and the Bengals are both 0-2, and the Browns, I don't trust the Browns offensively. So, I don't think the Steelers, first of all, even if these teams were all playing well right now, and they had the records that I thought they would have as we go into week 3, even if they were playing really good football by the time we get to these games, I don't think the Steelers are going to lose out. The Steelers are going to find a way to win at least, a couple of these games later in the year. So, we got to see how it goes. But right now, it's important for them to stack up these wins, when your schedule is soft. They got the Giants, they got the Commanders, on the schedule. Listen, they got the Chargers at home. And look, the Chargers, they're 2-0, but I think the Steelers can win that game. I think that right now that game is a toss-up. But the Chargers, they have done a really good job at running the football. Justin Herbert hasn't been, putting up monster stats because he hasn't had to because the running game has been great with J.K. Dobbins. Right now, he's the NFL's leading rusher. And the Chargers have been playing good defense. This is going to be the best opponent they've played so far, I would say. I mean, the Falcons, they looked like a disaster in week 1. Week 2, Kirk Cousins got better as the game went along. He's been getting great protection so far. Another quarterback that's had a clean pocket so far. But the Chargers are going to be a test because that running game could be a problem. And, T.J.Watt is going to be lining up, against one of the tackles. And if it's Joe, it's going to be Joe Alt. And Joe Alt did very well against Max Crosby. That was a great pick for the Chargers. Because you got Joe Alt on one side and you got Rashawn Slater on another. And that's really the running game has benefited from that. Because J.K. Dobbins has been running the football well. And Herbert hasn't been asked to do a ton. So this is going to be an interesting game coming up for the Steelers. Again, it's their home opener. It will be a tough game. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how Fields performs on the field on Sunday. But Steelers are 2-0. Right now they're in first place. So you got to give them credit. I said 9-8. 7 more games they need to win to get to that. But they're off to a good start, even though the offense hasn't looked great. But let me know what you guys think about this game. What were some of your takeaways from it? The Broncos, they will be going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or as I like to say, Tampa Bake. So they are gonna that's gonna be a tough game for them, and they are gonna be looking at 0-3, in my opinion, because I think the Bucs will win that game. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this game. I mean, I like I said, I picked the under, and that hit with no problem. So yeah, we're gonna take our next break. When we come back, we will talk about the Giants and the Commanders. We will talk about this game. This is the last game recap that I'm going to be doing for the week. And, yeah, how fitting. We'll get into it. We'll talk about what happened. The Giants, they scored 3 touchdowns in this game, but they still ended up losing the football game. And we will get into all the specifics and, what happened in this game. Why did this happen? We'll get into all that when we come back. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.